So hi everyone, and welcome to my brand new channel. My name is Bree, and I'm just going to do kind of a quick introduction. This whole thing was brought about because of my NaNoWriMo group. We call ourselves lovingly the Scrimos, and just based on our region, that's kind of where we got the name from. I don't take any credit for that whatsoever. But there's a lot of wonderful people in that group, very encouraging writers. So I just decided to take the plunge and kind of introduce myself, like I said. So this is kind of like a welcome to AuthorTube, welcome to booktube, welcome to NaNoWriMo style video. So the co-ML for our region, Mariah, I will link her channel below, but she actually put together kind of like a tag, if you will. So I am going to do that tag. So the first question is, who are you? And my name is Bree Bonomo. I am currently a 27-year-old full-time therapist. I write in my spare time, and I have a lot of interest, essentially. And that includes reading as well. And if you could see behind me, I have a lot of books. The second question is, when did I first start writing? I started writing when, I would say probably in 5th grade. Around that time is when I started reading Harry Potter for the first time, and I fell in love with poetry, actually. That was my first love. So in 5th grade, I commandeered a bunch of my friends, and we started this poetry club in our 5th grade class. So every recess we would have that we weren't able to go outside because of the weather, we would sit and write poetry together, and that was a really fun experience. And from there, I grew into short stories and eventually novel writing. But 5th grade is really the start of my writing obsession, and I have a lot of fun memories of that. Question number 3 is, when did you hear of Nano, and how many years have you done it? If you guys are relatively newer to the term Nano or NaNoWriMo, it's just a phrase that, or it's a condensed word that means National Novel Writing Month. And that's in November every year. So I actually heard of Nano, I want to say it was maybe in 2010. I didn't do it that year, but it piqued my interest. I wanted to kind of learn about it, and at that point I was co-writing a book with one of my best friends, and I was like, oh, that would be really fun to kind of get through it. Well, nothing really happened that year. In 2011, I attempted my first Nano. I think I ended up getting 6,000 words. Like, it was a real big sprint in the beginning, and then I kind of petered off. In 2017, I attempted again. I think I got a little bit farther that time, maybe like 8,000 words. That's 2017, is that what I said? 2017 I tried, I failed. 2018, it was the first time I really tried, and I finished it. I finished Nano at 58,000 words. And I ended up adding, I think, a total 64,000 of a first draft after Nano was completed. So to kind of answer that question, to sum it up, I tried 3 years, but only successfully managed 1 year. But this year, I'm hoping it to be the second. Question number 4 is, have you finished any books? And the answer is actually yes. I currently have, like I said, my Nano for last year. It is a complete draft. It's not 100% finished, but as far as from the beginning to the end, it is finished. And I am co-writing a book, like I mentioned, with my best friend, and that has been through many drafts, and we are actually trying to go on submission with that currently. We're doing a few changes, but otherwise it's ready to go. Question number 5 is, have you self-published or traditionally published at all? And the answer is no. The second part of that too is, if no, do I want to someday? And yes, absolutely. Like I said, with my one book, I am trying to find an agent currently for that, and I'm hoping we'll go from there. Question number 6 is, what are you writing right now? So other than the co-authored book, which is probably going to come up quite a bit because that is my main project right now, I am also trying to submit a proposal for a short story collection, which would be in the young adult fantasy genre. Actually, it's not really fantasy now that I think about it. It's actually more contemporary, but set in 1692 Salem, Massachusetts. So if you look that up, you kind of know what the story is probably going to be about. So those are really the two things I think I'm mainly working on. And then come November, I will be working on a YA contemporary novel as well. What are we up to? Are we up to 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is any authors or writers that I look up to. And yes, of course, there's a bunch. I will have to give credit to J.K. Rowling. As I said, when I was in 5th grade, I really got interested in Harry Potter, and before that, I had a really hard time trying to get into any books. I used to buy them for the covers, and then they would sit there in my room, or I would borrow them from the library because I liked the covers, and I would actually make up my own stories for the covers. I didn't want to read the book, I just wanted to make my own stories, if that was any indication early on. But J.K. Rowling really inspired me to really get into reading, which without getting into reading, I don't know if I would have gotten into writing. So other than J.K. Rowling, though, more recently I met Zoraida Cordova at an author event, and she really, really inspired me. She was able to answer a lot of questions. She's always so sweet, and she was persistent, and she struggled a lot trying to get into this field and then made it work for her, so I admire her. I also look up to Libba Bray, which, you know, you can come at me now, but I have only read one book by Libba Bray, and that was the first book of the Diviner series, which I loved. Want to keep going, I just haven't had the motivation to keep it going because it's a long series and they're big books. But her as a person was really inspiring. I also saw her at an author event, and she just had so much wisdom to impart and like techniques, and we just had such a similar story. The one thing that really stuck out to me was that she pulled out a piece of literature that she wrote in like 4th or 5th grade, and it was terrible, but there were so many similarities to how I used to write as well. And I just looking at her was like, if you could go from that to what you are today as such a distinguished author, then I can as well. And I really enjoyed that panel completely. But otherwise, yeah, there's a lot of authors that are, I mean, pretty much any author that I come across is kind of inspirational to me, to be cheesy. But, I mean, if you made it, or you're doing what you love, and you defined your own success, like, that's admirable. So, question 8 is, what's your genre? And this one really doesn't apply to me because I do like to write in all genres. I am currently working a lot of, well, my main project with my co-author is a fantasy novel. It's kind of a genre-bending fantasy novel where we have some parts in our world, some parts in a fantasy world, and they kind of cross over. So it's a little bit like a portal fantasy. But I'm also writing, and that's, right now, that's more of like a new adult novel, leaning more towards adult, I think, just because of the content in it. But I've also written, my Nano last year was a YA fantasy. My Nano this year, I'm planning it to be a YA contemporary. I've written some short stories that were adult romance contemporary. Yeah, I don't really, I would definitely say what I feel most comfortable writing in is poetry, contemporary, and fantasy. Those are what I read the most, so those are what I feel most comfortable in. But I really wouldn't mind writing in other genres too and testing my limits. One of my goals would be to write a Star Wars book, actually. And that's sci-fi. And I'm not really as familiar with writing sci-fi, but that would be something that would be one of my goals. So, my genre is everything. And the last question then is, do you have a favorite trope or guilty pleasure in books? And I really didn't prep this one at all. But what I'd probably say is I really like when they're well done. I like this kind of forbidden love where it's like that kind of like enemies to lovers, but also when you know you shouldn't be with someone. The two best circumstances I can point to that, well, the one definitely is Furyborn by Claire Legrand, where she has this pull to someone who is not right for her at all. It's kind of like an evil being, if you will, and you have that attraction, but you know it's not right for you. And then secondly, I would say in the Grisha trilogy with the Darkling, if you read that, there's also kind of a pull to him, but like ultimately, like I don't want them to end up, but I love that tension in a book. That's all for me. That's the main one I could think of. I do kind of like love triangles sometimes when they're well done, but more frequently when I've been reading books with love triangles, I'm not really impressed. So we'll see if anything else kind of comes up. But those are, I think, what would be the top two for, well, at least the top one. Like I said, love triangles sometimes. And I'm sure when I stop this video, I'm going to have a million other tropes that are going to come up and be like, oh, that's one as well. But it was really nice chatting with everyone. I am really excited to see if I continue with this channel. No promises right now, but I would like to make some connections and keep moving forward. So I will hopefully see you guys soon in another video. Bye.